So we've come nearly to the end of the first session of the presentations. I have one output from the Open Access Initiative that I would like to present to you. This is the Nairobi Housing Development Dashboard. It's not a new dashboard. We developed these last year, and we've been trying to get different stakeholders to join in, and this is mainly just for data sharing, for market development. So just for introductory purposes, this sits on the CAF website. It's free for the public to access it. You don't need any specific software to access this dashboard. And the data, even if you need it in Excel, is always available. So this dashboard mainly shows housing development supply within the Nairobi metropolitan area. We've covered 4 counties, Nairobi, Kiambu, Machakos, and Kajiado. The reason we've left out Murang'a is because it's mainly agricultural land, and there's no many developments to cover there. I'm sorry, Murang'a people. Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah. So that's what we've covered, and this dashboard is a live online platform. So you're able to interact with it, you're able to specify the data you need, depending on either location, price limit, sizes, or even typology. This is a snippet of how the dashboard looks like. So you're able to pick the data that you're looking for. We've only been able to collect data over the last 2 years. So we have data from 2021, we have data from 2022. We're currently updating the data set that we have, and that should be updated by next month, and you can get the most recent data on housing supply. So this dashboard allows you to pick the data you want. So do you want the current one? Do you want from a previous year? And then in terms of location, we have the neighborhoods that we all kind of know of. We've not been able to get proper shapefiles that allow us to have like administrative boundaries, but we really show the neighborhoods as we know them within the metropolitan area. You're able to pick projects that are either complete, ongoing, stalled, etc. at different stages. You're able to pick the unit types. Are you looking for apartments? Are you looking for bungalows? Are you looking for maisonettes? You're also able to pick if they're government supported or not. We don't have a price limit for this, so it's not mainly for affordable housing projects, it's for everything that we have. We've tried to pick projects that have more than at least 30 units and above. And once you've filtered up there, then this dashboard adjusts itself depending on what you've picked. So you can tell how many apartments are you looking at, how many bungalows are you looking at, where are they located. So this map is very live and correct. So we've gone around in the field getting Google pin locations for where these projects are. So if you go or hover around that map, you're able to see a specific project. Where available, you can also see the website to that developer or to that project. As part of the dashboard, we are also offering a bit of an analysis of the data that we have already. So we provide a couple of graphs that can be useful for a developer and also a buyer. So I should have mentioned earlier, this dashboard has 2 views. You can view it as a developer, you can view it as a buyer. The only difference comes in when you have to look at the graphs, and we've tried to customize those to be more relevant to whoever is viewing it. So if you're a developer, then the graphs would be more helpful if they're developer information related. So for example, the price of units in that area, the rent per square meter, service charge. We don't have details like occupancy and sales, and I think we all understand why. It's very hard to get that data and get really dependable data, but we provide as much as we can. Below here, you can just see a list of what graphs we're able to show. If you're a buyer, then you're able to also see graphs that are more relevant to you in that case. So the rent, the price, the service charge, etc. So we're able to provide that, and then we provide a table at the bottom just summarizing whatever data you had filtered. You're able to reset the filters, check a different area, compare areas, and we believe this is very helpful for market development. We are all trying to do feasibility studies every now and then, trying to determine where the opportunity lies. This dashboard allows you to do that from the comfort of your office and figure out what area you're looking at and what is already there, and that helps you understand what product then you need to develop for that area. The data collection process, we do it internally as CAF, so we get people to go to the field, collect that data. It sits with different custodians, caretakers, property managers, developers, real estate companies. It's very hard for us to consolidate that data. So we welcome you to give feedback so that whatever data then we're showing is correct. You're mainly the custodians of the primary data. You have the right values. Whatever we get out there, sometimes it's very hard to stand behind it because you don't know where it was sourced from. So we welcome you to provide feedback on the data that we already have. It speaks to your projects. It would be helpful if it's correct. Give us websites that people can refer to, and we're going to add them to the dashboard. So I think I've tried to really emphasize the user is part of the data validation process. Please do not be very harsh on us if something is not really correct. We're just trying to show where the problem is. We don't have correct data, we need it, and this is public available data. I don't think there's any private data that we provide in this case for this specific product. So please, you're welcome to share your data, and we'll keep improving the dashboard. Should you need the data in Excel, we provide an email on that website. Send an email and you get the data in Excel. It's more detailed, has other details that cannot go into the dashboard, so it would be very helpful for you. As I mentioned earlier, we are collecting data to update the dashboard. We'll do the usual process of going to the field and try to collect the data. But we agree we cannot cover everything, we cannot get 100% accurate data. We call upon all the custodians of data in the house. Please avail the data. It's helpful for market development. It's useful for you. It's useful for the other stakeholder within the housing space. Thank you. That's a very brief presentation. So that brings us to the end of the presentations, and I would like to give us a couple of minutes to have any questions from the 5 presentations that we've had. If there's any question that you're having that has not been addressed to the presentations, it's time to speak up. Do we have any questions? Either to Alan, to Asmina's team, to Agre, to myself, to Roy. Any questions? You okay?
One of the issues raised was the need to use different materials. There was a lot of that. What conversations have been had with government in order to change the building code? And does anybody have any progress? It's great to work in a lab and create new materials, but if we're not allowed to use them, what use?
Thank you for that question, Tom. I think, Asmina, that's your question.
Oh, okay. Well, I like to go up front. Right.
And maybe before you answer, because I have a related question, you can answer both of them. On those alternative building materials, I think the reality is, especially in Nairobi, we'll be building up, G plus 8, 10, or whatever. To what extent, then, would they be applied in a context of a high-rise, but also in a context of affordability? And I know there'll be a panel around the balance between affordability and green.
Yeah. To start with your first question, there really hasn't been a lot of discussion about alternative building materials with the government with regards to the building code. There's been several reviews done to include green sustainable building practices, green certification, some of which, very little of which was incorporated in the newly gazetted code. There were conversations years ago, decades ago almost, with the government on alternative building materials, particularly local building materials like soil stabilized blocks and stuff. And the government had set up some centers where they were showcasing these materials and trying to do capacity building, but that kind of petered out with the funding, like they lost the funding or something, and that went by the wayside. Currently, it's not easy to decarbonize these materials. It is still costly. It hasn't gotten to the stage where it's cost effective to do this. So the challenge is going to be working with the supply chains, right, to find the right solutions and then scale them to where they do become affordable. To answer your last question on high-rises, I mean, at this point, mass timber has become a very attractive option, and you're seeing, pilots that are building higher and higher projects, right? Like more so in the developed world, but definitely it'll come here sooner or later, right? So as far as costs, again, it's not cost competitive at this point, right? It's very expensive. Even greening cement and steel and aluminum is very expensive right now. And until these technologies can scale, and until we have the alternative materials, like if you want to do cement with fly ash, right? That's not available to scale, to do that here in Africa, right? So these are some of the challenges we're facing, but we're going to have to address them. And we're going to have to address them urgently if we're going to be able to reduce the emissions. Sorry. Are you asking me another question?
Isn't the scale opportunity the focus on affordable housing? I mean, it's kind of a chicken and an egg. I get that. But you can achieve the scale you need to bring the prices down if you focus on where the market actually is, which is low-income housing, right?
Absolutely.
And so to make that argument, that requires then some sort of initial seed funding to get you over the hump, but maybe that's where the advocacy needs to be. And then I think Tom's question is also relevant, that the building code should in fact embrace it, that seems to be an advocacy target that we should be engaging with.
Agreed. And also, we need to work with the standards agencies like KEBS, right? Because we're going to have to develop our own EPDs, environmental product declarations, for whatever products, low carbon products, are developed here, particularly in Kenya, right? So, but I agree with you on the affordable housing. If you'll just give me another minute, and I'm going to plug KGBS here again for a couple of reasons. One, KGBS, after doing this ABMT report, is looking at capacity building in these areas and these centers that have been established years ago. We'd like to resurrect that. We'd like to have our youth members participate and be able to man these centers and provide capacity building and training on some of the local materials like the soil stabilized blocks and whatever. That was the one that was most prevalent at the time. But further, KGBS is also a partner with the government on the building climate resilience for the urban poor. And that's where, our CEO isn't in the room anymore, but we were talking just the other day about implementing emerging technologies, particularly mass timber, because it's a biogenic material, and that's the future for us, for all of us, is we're going to have to look to materials that are not being extracted anymore, but grown sustainably and are renewable, right? So we're all going to have to go in that direction. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have another question. Please, someone pass the mic to the gentleman there. Please introduce yourself so we know who is in the room. I'm sorry.
Thank you. My name is Waweru Gadesha. I'm an architect. And I don't have a question. I'm just going to contribute some information with regard to the building code. I'm here in my personal capacity, but I'm a board member of the National Construction Authority, and so I know a little bit about the building code. The status at present is as follows. Via Gazette notice of February this year, the Cabinet Secretary has gazetted the regulations or the code for discussion in Parliament. And Parliament is both the National Assembly and the Senate. So obviously I've been involved in that exercise for a long time, easily 15 years, but we're almost there. With regard to a green component of the code, there's been many contributions over the years by stakeholders, including Kenya Green Building Society, via whatever legislative drafting process. Not everything has been carried. My key points to all of those stakeholders who are interested: please look at the document. It's been published. It's available at the government printer. Please lobby your members of parliament. It's at that stage, and that'll be the last time we can make an impact on that document. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Do you have another question before we proceed? Yes, we're good. Thank you very much. We'll now proceed to a panel discussion that will still focus on affordability and sustainability. I'd like to introduce Tom Moshiri, who's a board member at Buildex. He's going to come forward and introduce his panelists. Welcome.